you see life cycle hooks. Life cycle hooks are special methods or functions that are automatically called at a specific stages of the component's life in a web application. So generally for a human being, what are the different stages in the life? Like when you are newly born, you are an infant or a child. Then after that, you will become a teenager. After that, you will become an adult. Okay. After that, you will become an older person. Okay. There are different stages in your life, right? Similarly, for LWC component also, there are different stages. So the first one is the constructor. Okay. And the next one is the callback, connected callback. The second one is the connected callback. Okay. The third one is the rendered callback. Fourth one is the disconnected callback. So initially it will start with constructor hook. So these are known as hooks. Initial one, the first one is known as the constructor hook. The next one is known as the connected callback hook. And the next one is the rendered callback hook, disconnected callback hook. So lifecycle hooks are special methods or functions that are automatically called at a specific stages of the component's lifecycle. They allow developers to intervene and execute code at a critical moments during the component's lifecycle. So if you write constructor, that will execute in the beginning stage. If you write some code inside the connected callback, then it will execute as soon as the page loads. Okay. A rendered callback will execute once the page is loaded completely. And whenever you want to destroy the Lightning Web component or you want to move it away from the page, then we will use disconnected callback hook. Okay. So see, here he have given another example. Like see, for a plant, there are different life cycles like seeding. When you put a seed in the ground, then it will grow. Okay. Then it will blossom, means it will give fruits or flowers. Eventually, the plant will die, right? Similarly, here we have these many life cycle hooks. First life cycle hook is constructor hook. The constructor hook is called when a component is created, but before it's connected to the DOM. The component is created, but it is not connected to the DOM. It's usually used to set up the initial state and the default values to the component properties. If you want to give some default initial values, like how we use constructor in our Apex class, to provide some initial values. Initialization we do inside the constructor, right? Similarly, here for initialization, we have the constructor method. After the constructor, connected callback. When we will use this, the connected callback gets triggered when a component finds its place in the DOM. It's a suitable place to add event listeners or initiate some data fetching. You want to load the component onto the page. In that case, we will use the connected callback hook. This will execute when the component loads onto the page. A rendered callback. The rendered callback is called after every render of your component. Okay. After the page loads, you want to display. Rendering means what? Displaying or showing. This, which means both after the first render and after any subsequent re-renders. Okay, so first time you are loading and then you are clicking some button, again it should load, right? Every change, anytime it is loading again and again, every time it loads, from then onwards, every time it's renders, that render callback hook will execute. Okay, after this disconnect callback hook, when this will execute, when a component is extracted from the DOM, the disconnected callback is activated. This is an ideal spot for necessary tidying, like the removal of the event listeners. Okay, whenever you want to remove it from the base, then we will use the disconnected callback. During this process, if there is any error coming, then to handle that errors, we have error callback hook. So total, how many you need to remember? 5. The first one is the constructor hook. Second one is the connected callback hook. Third one is the rendered callback hook. Fourth one is the disconnected callback hook. After that, error callback hook. These life cycle hooks, these life cycle hooks in LWC allow for precise control over the component's life cycle and can be used to optimize the performance, enhance functionality, and create a robust, maintainable code base. By understanding how and when to use these life cycle hooks, you can create great web components. Okay. So, what are the considerations that we need to do? Okay. So, keep the constructor logic minimal. Constructor logic only if it is needed. The load, I mean, use the minimum code inside the, avoid placing heavy logic inside the constructor. Okay. Next, the second thing, use the connected callback for initialization. If you need to fetch data or perform some substantial initialization, use the connected callback as it ensures that the component is connected to the DOM. This dot load data. Okay, we use this to load data. Okay, clean up in disconnected callbacks. After connecting, then if you want to disconnect, remove away, then always remove event listeners, timers, subscriptions in the disconnected callback to prevent memory leak. So unnecessary, to avoid wastage of memory, we use disconnected callback once our work is done. Avoid direct DOM manipulation. Instead of manual DOM manipulation, it's wise to rely on the data binding, leaving the DOM updates to the framework itself. So instead of making manipulation on the UI level, make the manipulation from the backend so that always you will get the dynamic information. Okay. Handle errors gracefully. So we have this error callback, right? So using that error callback, you can always handle the exceptions that you are getting. Avoid infinite loops in rendered callback. Since the rendered callback is called after every render, be cautious about triggering the state changes that may lead to continuous re-renders. So it should not go into infinite loop. We should take proper care in that. Consider component dependencies when you are using multiple components. So the dependent components, if, like we have seen in the previous examples, right? If my parent is trying to fetch the child component, and if that is not loaded properly, so dependency, because of dependency, the parent also will not load properly. So we need to consider all these things. Embrace modularity. So wherever it is possible, always make small components and then club them together to build a bigger component instead of writing everything within a single component. So test lifecycle methods, refer to official documents. So before doing this, what are the common mistakes and how to avoid them? Overloading the constructor means putting too much logic inside the constructor is not at all advisable. Keep the constructor simple and move the complex initialization to the connected callback. Do your complex initialization inside the connected callback. Okay, not clearing up resources. Failing to remove the DOM listeners, event listeners, cancel timers, all these things. If you don't do, what happens? It will unnecessarily take away the time. I mean, loading time will increase and it will get into so many problems. So once you are done with your activity, it's advisable to remove those things using disconnected callback. Always use a disconnected callback hook to clean up the resources and avoid memory leaks. Manipulating the DOM directly. Manually, directly writing the content inside the DOM is not acceptable. Instead of that, get that value from the JavaScript, okay, and use the connected callback. Inside the connected callback and rendered callback, there you put your actual code. So now you take these notes, okay, because this is also one of the questions that may be asked inside your interviews. So that's why put the heading as life cycle hooks in LWC. Put the heading as life cycle hooks in LWC. First one, write down. Okay. You put the heading as life cycle hooks. Okay, write down. Life cycle hooks are special methods or functions that are automatically called at specific stages of a component's life in a web application. They allow developers to intervene and execute code at critical moments during a component's life cycle, such as when it's created, rendered, updated, or destroyed. Write down this, and after that, let's take the names of the hooks. Okay, write down the names. First one. Okay, first complete writing this one. Put the heading constructor hook and write on this one. Okay, write down this example. Connected callback hook. Write down the example.